It happened fast. Too fast for spin doctors to contain. Streets that were meant to be quiet, controlled, predictable, suddenly filled with noise, flares, chants, and raw anger. This week, the pressure that's been building across Britain didn't just leak out. It burst. Protesters stormed city centres, shut down roads, surrounded government buildings, and forced the political class to confront something they've been desperately trying to manage from behind press statements. And right at the centre of the storm was Keir Starmer, visibly rattled, scrambling for control as the situation spiraled. If you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, please do so. And to everyone already subscribed, thank you for the support. Overnight, footage flooded social media. Marches that started as organised demonstrations turned chaotic as numbers swelled beyond expectations. Police lines stretched thin. Councils issued emergency warnings. Commuters were stranded. Shops pulled shutters down. In some places, MPs were escorted out of public events. The mood wasn't celebratory. It was furious. And for a Labour leader who's built his brand on calm competence and discipline, this was the exact scenario he feared most. Just hours ago, Starmer was forced into damage control mode. His carefully scripted language about responsible protest and listening to concerns landed flat as crowds shouted back at the very idea that they haven't been speaking loudly enough already. The clips circulating online tell their own story. A man under pressure, voice tightening, jaw clenched, repeatedly interrupted by chants that cut through every prepared answer. This didn't come out of nowhere. Britain has been living on edge for months. The cost of living crisis never really ended. It just became normalized misery. Rents keep climbing while wages stall. Mortgage holders are still reeling from interest rate shocks. Energy bills have eased slightly, but remain brutal for low-income households. Food prices are still squeezing families who already cut everything they could. And all of it sits alongside an NHS stretched to breaking point, with waiting lists that feel endless, and staff who are exhausted beyond words. This week's protest pulled all of that into one boiling mass. Nurses marched alongside renters. Teachers stood with council workers. Young people locked out of housing marched next to pensioners choosing between heating and eating. It wasn't a single-issue crowd. It was a country venting, and the timing couldn't be worse for Labour. Starmer's leadership has been built on appearing steady, sensible, and safe after years of conservative chaos. But that strategy assumes stability is still what people want. These protests suggest something darker, that large parts of the public no longer believe the system, under any party, is working for them. When protesters shout, "None of you listen," that anger doesn't stop at Downing Street. It echoes straight into the opposition benches. Inside Westminster, the reaction was instant and ruthless. Conservatives seized the moment, accusing Labour of encouraging unrest through mixed messaging, while simultaneously claiming Starmer had lost control of his own base. Labour MPs, meanwhile, privately admitted the scale of the protest caught them off guard. Some tried to distance themselves. Others leaned into the anger, hoping to channel it. The result was confusion. And confusion is lethal in a moment like this. Starmer's problem is that he's trying to walk a political tightrope while the ground underneath is cracking. On one side, he needs to reassure markets, institutions, and cautious voters that Labour won't rock the boat. On the other, the streets are filled with people who feel the boat is already sinking. And they're done being told to stay calm. Yesterday, when Starmer condemned what he called disruptive tactics, the backlash was immediate. Clips were stitched, remixed, and blasted across platforms within minutes. Comment sections exploded. The message people heard wasn't about order, it was about distance. Another politician more concerned with optics than pain. There's also the migration debate simmering beneath all this. Protests in several cities blended economic anger with fears about housing shortages and public services under strain. The rhetoric online escalated quickly, forcing party leaders into awkward positions. Condemn too strongly and risk alienating voters who feel ignored. Say too little and get accused of dog whistling. Starmer hesitated, and hesitation reads as weakness in moments like this. Meanwhile, the unions are watching closely. Strike ballots are already in motion across transport, healthcare, and local government. Protesters marching this week weren't just venting. Many were sending a signal. If politicians won't move, they will. Industrial action combined with mass protest is a nightmare scenario for any government in waiting. It signals a breakdown of trust before power even changes hands. Internationally, the images raised eyebrows. Britain likes to present itself as a stable democracy, a reliable partner. But scenes of streets gridlocked by protest, police scrambling, and political leaders visibly shaken don't project calm authority. Overseas media framed it as another sign of a country still struggling to find its footing post-Brexit, post-pandemic, post-everything. And then came the moment that really shifted the narrative. Late last night, during a press appearance meant to steady the situation, Starmer snapped. Not in a dramatic shouting match, but in that quieter, more revealing way. A sharp retort, an edge to his voice, a pause that lingered too long. It was subtle, but voters noticed. This was a man under strain, caught between advisors urging restraint and a public demanding urgency. Within minutes, the phrase, "Starmer lost it," was trending. This matters because perception is everything right now. Elections are looming, trust is fragile. People aren't just voting on policy anymore. They're voting on who seems capable of handling crisis without freezing or flinching. Protesters in the streets aren't reading white papers. They're watching reactions. For ordinary people, the anger is simple. They feel worked over. Renters paying half their income for damp flats. Nurses doing double shifts and still struggling to cover basics. Young graduates locked out of home ownership entirely. Parents juggling childcare costs that rival rent. Taxpayers watching billions debated in Parliament while their own lives get smaller. The elite conversation about fiscal rules and long-term planning sounds hollow when someone's fridge is empty today. That's the emotional gap these protests exposed, and it's the gap Starmer now has to bridge, fast. If he leans too hard into law and order, he risks being seen as just another establishment figure protecting the system. If he leans too hard into protester sympathy, he risks spooking swing voters and donors who crave stability. Standing still isn't an option anymore. The streets made that clear. Behind closed doors, Labour strategists are reportedly scrambling to recalibrate messaging. Expect sharper rhetoric on housing, louder promises on NHS reform, tougher language about corporate profiteering, but words alone won't quiet streets that have already learned how powerful they can be. And here's the uncomfortable truth for everyone in power. Once mass protest energy ignites, it rarely burns out neatly. It morphs. It spreads. It attaches itself to new grievances. One march becomes 10. One viral clip becomes a movement. Social media ensures no moment stays local anymore. This week could be remembered as a warning shot, or as the start of something far bigger. The question now is whether Keir Starmer can regain control of the narrative, or whether this moment marks the beginning of a deeper unravelling. Can Labour convincingly position itself as the voice of frustrated Britain without becoming consumed by the anger itself? Can the political system absorb this shock without cracking further? Because what we're watching isn't just a protest story, it's a stress test of leadership, legitimacy, and patience. A country asking, loudly, how much longer it's expected to wait. If these scenes unsettled you, if they felt familiar, or if they felt overdue, you're not alone. This moment forces a reckoning about who holds power, who's heard, and who's running out of time. Was this an overreaction or a long-delayed eruption? Did Starmer misjudge the mood, or is the mood now impossible for any leader to manage? Let me know what you think. Drop your take in the comments, share this with someone who's been feeling the pressure too, and make sure you're subscribed. Because if this week proved anything, it's that British politics just entered a far more volatile chapter, and it's not slowing down anytime soon.